In the nation's first century, nothing expressed the American spirit of opportunity and ambition more than westward expansion. Following the American Revolution, settlers poured across the Appalachian Mountains into the rich lands of the Ohio Valley. Between the Louisiana Purchase in 1803 and the Gadsden Purchase in 1854, the United States nearly tripled in size. The California Gold Rush drew fortune seekers west in 1849, while pioneers traveled the Oregon Trail in search of land, prosperity, and a new beginning. Then, not long after the Civil War broke out, a whole new field of opportunity arose as President Lincoln signed into law the Homestead Act of 1862. By 1860, California had about 380,000 residents. Oregon and the Washington Territory had 64,000 total. The Great Plains, however, were still sparsely populated by American settlers and remained the homeland of numerous Indian nations: Lakota, Cheyenne, Arapaho, Comanche, Kiowa, and Pawnee. Dakota Territory had fewer than 5,000 non-Indian residents. Journalist Horace Greeley became one of the nation's leading advocates of Western settlement. As early as 1838, writing in the New York weekly, The New Yorker, he urged ambitious Americans, "If any young man is about to commence the world, we say to him, publicly and privately, go to the West." His editorials helped persuade Americans that the nation's future lay beyond the Mississippi. By the eve of the Civil War, Congress had debated homestead legislation for years. Southern congressmen repeatedly blocked the bills, fearing that free farms would strengthen free states and weaken the political influence of slaveholding states. Once the Southern states seceded, that opposition largely disappeared. On May 20, 1862, President Abraham Lincoln signed the Homestead Act into law, creating one of the most significant domestic reforms in American history. The law offered ordinary Americans an extraordinary opportunity. For a small filing fee, qualified applicants could claim 160 acres of surveyed federal land, that's 1/4 of a square mile. Applicants had to build a home, cultivate the land, and live on the property for 5 years before receiving legal title. Remarkable for the era, single women and widows could also file claims in their own names. One of the first families to seize the opportunity wrote home, "Our home is only a little sod house, but it is our own, and we hope, with God's blessing, to make it a pleasant one." The first successful homestead claim is generally credited to Daniel Freeman. Just after midnight on January 1, 1863, Freeman persuaded officials in Brownville, Nebraska Territory to open the land office. Within minutes, he filed Homestead Application Number 1 for 160 acres near present-day Beatrice, Nebraska. Over the next century, hundreds of thousands of families settled lands that became Nebraska, Kansas, the Dakotas, Montana, Wyoming, and other western states. Altogether, more than 270 million acres, about 10% of the land area of the United States, passed into private ownership through the Homestead Act. Approximately 1.6 million successful claims were completed between 1863 and the late 20th century. Immigrants who intended to become American citizens could also qualify, encouraging large-scale immigration from Europe. With few trees available, many settlers built homes from thick blocks of prairie sod. The humble structures were known as soddies. Drought, blizzards, grasshopper plagues, poverty, and isolation forced many families to abandon their claims. Only about 40% of homestead applications ultimately resulted in permanent ownership, and some who succeeded eventually sold out to large land speculators. Yet within a few generations, lands once dominated by prairie grasses and vast bison herds became one of the world's most productive agricultural regions. The homestead movement profoundly advanced the American belief in property ownership and the creation of personal wealth through property rights. As for the Southerners, it turned out their predictions were true. The Homestead Act cultivated populations in the Great Plains that were generally more sympathetic to the anti-slavery North than to the pro-slavery South. Generations of young readers would learn of America's homesteaders through the autobiographical stories of Laura Ingalls Wilder. After 2 unsuccessful attempts to settle, once when they mistakenly built a home on the Osage Reservation in Kansas, Charles and Caroline Ingalls finally succeeded in homesteading in Dakota Territory, near what is now De Smet, South Dakota. Laura Ingalls married a fellow settler, Almanza Wilder, the main subject of the book, Farmer Boy. With the development of national railroads, homesteaders made their way west with greater speed and efficiency. The most successful homestead era fell between 1900 and 1930. In Wyoming, small farms cropped up next to large ranches. Waves of European immigrants homesteaded in North Dakota, especially from Germany, Sweden, Norway, and Russia. After New Mexico attained statehood in 1912, homesteading expanded there. One area of the country that especially struggled during this period was Montana. Droughts there caused many homesteaders to fail. The Homestead Act drew to a close in 1976, when Congress repealed it for the lower 48 states. Alaska received a 10-year extension. The last American homesteader was Kenneth Deardorff, who received just under 50 acres near Stony River, Alaska. He filed for land in 1986. His title was issued on May 5, 1988.